All right. Nutrition to lose weight. What's the best diet to lose weight? What's the best diet to be healthy? I want to talk about all of that. I'll talk about how to put together healthy meals for energy, for fat loss, for sports performance maybe, if that's your thing. There are some big picture things that I want to get into first before I start answering any questions. So let's talk about the most important idea. You get the results of whatever you do most of the time. So whatever is normal for you, that is what you get. If you want to change what you get, you have to change what you usually do. You have to change what is normal for you. I put a little blank on your handout there so you can write the word normal, because that is what we are going to focus on. If you want to change what you get, you have to change what's normal. The reason that diets don't work in general is because they don't change what is normal for you. A diet is a temporary shtick. Even if it's a smart and sensible temporary shtick, it's still a temporary shtick. Diet is Latin for temporary shtick. Did you know that? I think so. I'll have to look that up to be sure, but I think that's correct. So if you do this thing, and then here's the cycle of diets. You decide to go on a thing, and then you do the thing, whether it's smart or not, and then eventually you go off it. That's the phrase, right? Oh, I'm off whatever it is I was doing. And then what happens? You go back to normal. So your default, your normal, is what has to improve. All right? You don't need a new shtick. You need to change what is normal for you and what you typically do. And that, my friends, is the really big picture and the number one big idea. So if you walk away with nothing else today, what I'd like you to come away with is the idea that, whatever is normal for me, if I want to make some changes, I have to make what is normal better. It's not a new shtick. The diets and the diet mentality of some temporary thing that can fix me usually has some red flags, and I listed those on your little handout here. The diets usually have some sort of an end date. You know, the 30-day whatever, juice cleanse, the whole 30, and 28-day magic detox or whatever. You know, if there's an end date, it is not normal. And the same goes for phases too. This is the zero carb phase. This is the zero food phase. This is the zero air phase. And then after 7 days, you can add air back in. And then, you know, so anything that has a timeline like that or an end date is not a sustainable plan. Other hallmarks of plans that are diet mentality are you don't do this and you can't have that, you know, all this restriction mentality. And what we try to coach instead is, what do you do to make your normal better? It's not what you can't do. This is not about what you can't have and what the list of all the forbidden things. This is about like, all right, here is what is normal for me right now. What can I do to make that one step better? Does that make sense? I know everybody at Six Fitness is already ingrained with that whole concept of having a great normal, but I needed to start with that for the folks who might be new to this concept, because that is really, really important. Another diet red flag is restrictions. Let me tell you a little story. I was just on an airplane a couple weeks ago coming back from New Mexico, where I go out and I do some pretty crazy personal work out there, but that's a whole different story. Anyways, I was on the airplane, and the two ladies behind me were chatting, and the flight attendant came by with the pretzels and said, "Do you want a snack?" And the one lady says, "Oh, I can't have that. I'm on keto." And the lady next to her says, "Tell me about that. What can't you have? What are the restrictions? What are you not allowed?" And that right there summarizes everything I'm saying. If you are on a diet, there's a whole list of things you can't have and you can't do and you're not allowed and all of that kind of mentality. So the no list and the never list and the can't do list is a big red flag. So instead of restriction mentality and can't have mentality, we want to have a what do I get to do? What will I do? It's a choosing mentality instead of a restriction mentality. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Anybody ever gone through a list of things they're not allowed to have? How long does that last? 28 days, right? Or whatever the whatever the diet phrase is. All right. And one more thing to watch out for is a list of good foods and bad foods in your mind. Once you start, now that goes within reason. I mean, like everybody knows that soda is not good for you, so that's like junk food, and we could say, yeah, that's bad for you. But when you start getting into like real food that you start labeling as like, oh, this is bad food. You know, carbs are bad, fats are bad. This, you know, whatever the devil of the day kind of thing is. When you start getting into this is good food, this is bad food, you're really teetering on that restriction list and temporary mindset. So watch out for that too. Does that all make sense for starters?
Yes.
Cool. So here's what I'd like to do for homework. We got homework on the first day of school. I tell you. Think about, if you would, for a moment, this whole concept of whatever your normal is and whatever your default is. And I'd like you to come up in your mind, maybe we'll share if we decide to, come up in your mind, what is the number one thing in your default or your normal that is like hurting you, is not good for you, is making you bang your head up against the wall, keep you stuck? What's the number one thing? Just pick one thing. You might have a list of 10 in your mind, but like, what's the one big thing that you keep telling yourself, damn, I keep doing that? You know, what's the one thing? You can write it down if you like. Think about it. I'll give you a moment. And you all have a handout so you know what the next question is. The question is, why do you keep doing this? And here is where I'm going to really challenge you to try to come up with a deeper answer. Because the initial surface answer is going to be something simple about circumstances, like, oh, it's because I'm stressed. There's a better, deeper reason, a more accurate reason underneath that. If you have a habit, let's say your number one thing that is hurting you is every time I get stressed at work, I eat donuts. Okay? The why you are doing donuts is not because you are stressed. The deeper reason behind why you're doing this is because you actually want something, right? If you're feeling stressed at work, for example, boss is breathing down your neck, you're overwhelmed, you got deadlines, everything feels terrible. What you probably really want, and I know everybody's shaking their head like, oh, that never happens to me, I've never heard that before. What you probably want in a situation like that is some sort of sense of peacefulness or being in control and empowered. Right? Not being at the mercy of all these other things. So food cannot give you peacefulness. Food cannot make you in control, right? So we pretend that, oh, if I eat these donuts, then I'm gonna, not be stressed. I'm gonna be in control, and that is not the case. So when I ask this question about why are you doing the donuts in this example, if you could find the reason, like, oh, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm pretending that it makes me powerful, or I'm pretending it will take away my boss's bitchiness, or whatever is happening. Does that make sense? So the why is deeper than the surface circumstances. Oh, I'm stressed, or I'm busy, or whatever. I ask a question about banging your head up against the wall on the handout because we all do this in one form or another, right? We have this thing that keeps kicking our butt, and we know it's not good for us, and we keep doing it. And like, why do we keep doing that to ourselves? And we do it because it's easier, or because change is scary. Doing something different requires attention and energy that we might not feel like we have. So like, we just keep doing our default, keep banging our head against the wall. So if the thing that you don't like is your head hurts because you're banging your head up against the wall, right? The solution to this is you do not need a new keto wall, or you do not need to sign up for a program that delivers special frozen walls to your house, right? The problem is you're banging your head against the wall, and you got to figure out why you're doing that and do something different, all right? The solution is not a different version of the wall, okay? Does that make sense? Any light bulbs going on? Would anybody be interested in sharing his or her number one thing that is hurting you?
Yeah, I can. I think my water intake. I don't drink enough water.
You do not drink enough water. All right. How come?
I just don't think about it.
You don't think about it. Okay. So that's a pretty innocuous thing that is hurting you. It's like, oh, I could do this more because it would be better for me. It's not like wrecking your life and putting the same 40 pounds back on you and take it off and put it back on you, and there's not a lot of like emotional stuff around that. Good for you. You're special, because just about everybody else always comes up with like, I'm doing this because, and I should have brought a box of Kleenex because everybody starts crying at that time. Anybody else want to share anything that he or she is doing that isn't great for you?
Drinking more than I should.
You are drinking like more alcohol, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. So here comes the question. Why are you doing that?
Because generally the friends that I have, we hang out and that's what we do.
So what you're saying, let me make sure I understand this. You are drinking too much alcohol. It's not good for you. And the reason you are saying you are doing that is because you are around people who are drinking alcohol. Okay. Now, not to beat you up on this, but as your coach for this hour, it is my job to challenge you on some of these underlying assumptions. So what I am hearing is an underlying assumption that says, if everyone around me is drinking too much, then I have to drink too much.
I get that. I mean, I'm doing better, but it's just the atmosphere, the peer pressure.
Sure. Now this is really where we're digging into the good stuff. And is it okay if we keep going on this? Because I know you didn't sign up for like psychoanalysts and this kind of stuff. Great. So
Mine is not as easy as not drinking water.
exactly. That's not as simple. So I'm glad this is really, really good. So okay, the effect is too much alcohol. And the first thing that you said was because I'm around other people. All right? That is one of the surface reasons that we talked about. That's not the real why underneath. And you just started touching on the real why underneath when you said, because it's peer pressure, meaning I want to fit in, right? So the underlying assumption is that in order to fit in with my friends, I have to do what they do.
I don't want to be the weird one.
The weird one. If I don't drink as much as my friend, then I'm a weirdo. Is that the statement?
Sort of.
Okay. I will challenge you to question the truth of the fact that, I'm a weirdo for lots of different reasons. My friend Matt could tell you that. But that's not one of them. The fact that making me, if I drink less than some of my friends, I probably drink less than all my friends now that I think about it. But in any case, that's not the reason that it makes me a weirdo. So, I am all about wanting to fit in, right? However, I will challenge you to put a little thought on your own time into what that really means and what that looks like. Because you might look at a lot of other different things too. Do you all dress the same? Do you all work in the same place?
No.
Do you all live in the same neighborhoods?
No.
Okay, so there are a lot of things that are different.
But I'll do the same sport.
Great, and there are some things that are the same too. So you can be friends with people that have some differences, whether it's clothing, jobs, location, attitude, who likes what sports teams, right? So it can be done. So the underlying assumption is that in order to be friends with these people, I have to do everything that they do is not correct. And I know you know that in your brain, but I'm trying to dig up like these underlying things for you so the big why underneath is not having you bang your head up against the wall all the time. Does that all make sense? Is that too heavy? Is it too boring? Is it okay? All right, cool.
I'm glad she said it. I like listening to what you're saying.
About wanting to fit in?
Yeah.
Okay, well, once again, same situation. Fitting in makes perfect sense. We're wired to do that as humans. And the thing that gets us in trouble in this particular case is the assumption that in order to fit in, I have to drink just like they drink, or I have to eat just like they eat, right? Because you
I
don't.
think it's totally that. I think it's just, that's what we've always done. I don't feel like I have to drink as much as they do. I just feel like because this is what we've always done, I have to have a drink or two. I throw darts.
Mhm.
I can't throw darts without having a few.
Okay.
It's called amine fluid. And so, you know, so, you know, 1 leads to 2, 2 leads to 3, and then before you know it, then I'm getting that, you know, hungry, and then I'm ordering those French fries and that type of thing. And so, yes, it's a vicious cycle, and I'm trying to break that.
So there's an association.
Yes.
That's what you're saying?
It's not necessarily because I feel like I have to drink because they're drinking.
Okay.
It's the atmosphere and the environment.
Gotcha.
that I'm in.
Okay, so this is a bit of a different thing. Is it okay if we keep going down this rabbit hole? Is that cool, or should we move on?
It's-
Who wants to do this one? Nobody wants to do this one. All right, we're going to move on then. We'll have to talk later, I guess.
That's fine.
All right. So with this whole idea of the diet mentality, right? You're on something or you're off something, and we all go through this cycle, right? We get motivated to do something. I don't like how I feel. I don't like how I look. I don't like my life. I'm going to do something because I'm sick of it. And you get motivated. And then you do a thing, right? And you try to change everything about your life all at once. I'm going to never eat dessert again. I'm going to give up bread and booze and wine and loose women or men or whatever you like. I'm going to exercise 5 days a week, and that's it. I'm sick of it. So you do that for a while until you can't stand it, or until you have the one day where you do have a dessert. And then what happens? Your brain tells you you have failed. The thing is over. You didn't make it through your 30 days or whatever. So most people refer to that as a train wreck or go off the rails, right? Then you go back to what you used to do, which is what got you in trouble in the first place. Until you gain all the weight back and you feel terrible and you don't like how you look and you don't feel like how you feel and you're sick of it. And then you decide to do something about it. You get motivated. Does any of that sound familiar from a cycle standpoint? Anybody been through several cycles of that? Yes. So, the number one way that you can guarantee that you will be stuck in that cycle for the rest of your life, the recipe for that is this. You can underline this in your handout. All or nothing thinking. All or nothing thinking, black and white thinking, all in or nothing is how you stay stuck in that cycle. Going back to the banging your head against the wall analogy, right? So like you bang your head against the wall and you decide you're going to order the special paleo and keto walls to bang your head around, and you do that for a while, and then and then you say, well, I'm going to knock down all the walls in my house. Right? So no, you don't need to knock down all the walls in your house. You just need to make a few changes so you don't keep hurting yourself in your head. Instead of the all or nothing thinking, instead of trying to fix everything all at once, baby steps work better because they're doable, right? So I wrote down a couple things for you on the little handout here. Instead of trying to be perfect, just do something better. You know, if you're doing 0 exercise, don't promise yourself you're going to get up and work out, or I'm going to go jog every day and I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week. That's from 0 to all that is, nobody can do that, right? You might do it for a week. And then as soon as you miss 1 day, you're off it. And you're back to 0, all or nothing. So instead of trying to be perfect, aim for better. What can I do that's a little bit better than nothing? I can get 1 workout with JB in the books for next week, 30 minutes. I I could do that. One thing, done. Better. Okay? When it comes to some of the food stuff, if you know that you have a tendency to eat things that aren't great for you, instead of saying, I am giving up desserts, I quit sugar, I'm giving up desserts, I'm never going to have another piece of bread or cake as long as I live, go with less, right? If you have a habit, say, of late night eating, let's say after you get home from work, you have dinner, you sit down, maybe you're watching television or something like that, and that's when the urge for having the pretzels or the chips comes out. So instead of trying to tell yourself, I quit chips, never have another chip, and then one day you have a chip, you're done being done with chips. Instead of trying to do that to yourself, let's aim for less chips. Maybe you pick one day a week where you don't do chips. Maybe instead of eating a whole bag of chips, you put a handful of chips in a bowl and say, all right, today that's what I'm going to have. Right? If you get to the point where you only eat your nighttime chips every other day, you've already cut your chip intake in half, and you still get to have chips at night. Right? So that's way better, and you don't have to give up chips. You don't have to try to quit. Some other notes I made are try to do something that's good for you more often instead of always. You might take your water thing. If you don't, if you try to approach the water thing and say, all right, every day I'm going to drink a whole gallon of water, which is a nice goal, but the mentality ought to be, okay, how am I going to make sure that I get a little more water into my diet? I'm going to make sure after I have breakfast, before I brush my teeth, I'm going to drink an extra glass of water. So there you go. There's one thing that you do, and you do that on most days, and there you go. You have extra glass of water every day. And you put a couple of those here and there throughout the week, problem solved. You don't have to do everything always perfectly. Ooh, and the last one that I wrote, I almost forgot about this one. Doing things on purpose instead of reactively is a really, really important concept when it comes to nutrition and food in general. We humans tend to be kind of reactive. So if your habit is to not think about food and leave yourself at the mercy of whatever you can scrounge up when you're starving, you're probably going to make some bad decisions on a regular basis. Because the stuff that you can scrounge up at the last second is usually not the best stuff, right? Grabbing the drive-through all the time or finding whatever you can get in the break room at work or something like that is not going to be the optimum nutrition. So making sure that your nutrition is a little bit more proactive instead of reactive, and proactive just means you put a little thought into it. I know here at Six Fitness, big emphasis on meal prep, and it should be, because that is the little bit of intention and forethought that you need to put together smart food for the rest of the day or the week. Planning is absolutely essential for nutrition success. At the very least, you ought to have an idea of what you're going to eat next and approximately when. Everybody think about that for just a moment. What time is it now? 2 o'clock? All right. Get in your mind, when is your next meal? What's it going to be? That took 6 seconds. Now we all have a good meal set up to be next. There are so many ways to go about this planning, but it really only takes a short, when you get good at it, it takes less than 2 minutes to plan the next day. So it doesn't really take a lot of time to plan. In the beginning, I think a lot of people tend to try to overdo that, and they think, I gotta plan out the whole week. I gotta make the shopping list for the whole week. And it's okay if you wanna do a week at a time, but it doesn't have to be. At the very least, like I said, the next meal. I like to do my next day, personally, I do 1 day at a time, and that works great for me. Some people do less or some people do more, but as long as you do something in the planning stage, that works fine. Before I go to sleep at night, I know what tomorrow's food is gonna be. so I don't have to think about it when tomorrow comes. Plus, I get to get excited about breakfast as I'm going to sleep. Yes. So, so you can plan a day, you can plan a week, you can plan just one meal every day. Maybe you get in trouble, like you're pretty good about eating breakfast at home, and dinners are not too bad. You usually got a good protein and vegetable dinner, but like when you're at work or when you're out and about all day, that's when you get in trouble because you don't know what you're going to have, and you eat too much fast food, or maybe you don't eat at all. So maybe that could be the one meal where you plan. You're like, okay, somewhere between 12 and 2, I'm going to have a mixed greek salad with chicken, and I can bring it with me. I can get it from these 5 different places, but that's what I'm going to do. So you have a plan. Something else that I suggest that you plan for, I made on a note here, substitutes. If you know that you love ice cream, and I'm not saying that I love ice cream, but I do, I love ice cream. That's my junk food of choice. So like, I'm not gonna keep it in the house, because then every day, every time you open up the freezer, you gotta say no to yourself about the ice cream. So if I'm gonna have an ice cream treat, then I do it on purpose. I say, it's Saturday, it's hot, I think it's a good day for some ice cream. And then I go to the ice cream store, in which case, what will it be today? It will be Cold Stone Creamery. Yes, yes it will. And I will get ice cream on purpose. And I will eat it, and I will enjoy it, and that will be fantastic. But I do not eat ice cream every night because I haven't eaten enough during the day, and I haven't planned dinner, and I get home at 7:30 and I'm starving, and I'm not gonna ask my starving brain to pick between making spinach and chicken and eating that ice cream. All right? So plan ahead and be purposeful about your treats. You notice I am not saying you can never have ice cream. Ice cream's bad food, it's bad for you. What would the world be like without ice cream? It's a terrible thought. So plan your treats accordingly, and when you have them on purpose, you're much better with how often you have them. You're much better with portions, selection, and you can also make some substitutes too. Sticking with the ice cream theme, maybe what I really want is like that smooth, creamy thing. So I can have Greek yogurt instead of ice cream. That's a good upgrade. So I still get the smooth, creamy bit, cold, smooth, creamy, and it's less sugar and way better for you. So that's a substitution. So just like we were talking about earlier about the thing that we're doing, it's like, what do we want to get out of that? You can do the same thing with food. You can say, is it really the potato chip that I like, or is it crunchy that I like? If it's crunchy, carrots and celery and radishes are crunchy too. So if you want the crunch, that might be what you want, not the chip. We've taught ourselves that crunchy equals chips, but other things are crunchy too. So is that all making sense? Cool.
Okay,
Right.
and along that line, what
Yes.
about where they're giving you the vegetable chips like sweet potato chips or guacamole chips or whatever? Are they any better for you?
Yeah, as a good rule of thumb, if you have stuff that is a higher nutrient content and is not fried up, frying is really what makes stuff not very good for you, be it French fries or potato chips and stuff like that. So if chips are baked, or if you want to make your own, like kale chips, or even make your own potato chips, cut up some potatoes and just don't fry them, because that's the thing that makes it not great, is that and all the chemicals that a lot of processed food gets added to. But it's mostly the frying. When you heat oil, it becomes bad for you. So olive oil and vegetable oil and coconut oil and avocado oil, all that stuff is great. Oil's in their natural form. But as soon as you heat them, it starts changing the chemical structure, and that is what makes it what's called a trans fat. Do you know what that is? You heard of trans fats? So when you heat an oil, it becomes bad for you. So potatoes, nutrients. Fried potatoes, bad for you because of the frying.
Because I have gone to putting my vegetables in the oven, but I put the olive oil in there to keep them from sticking.
That's okay generally because it's not that high of a temperature.
Okay.
if you want to get in, I'm going to geek out here for a second in chemistry. All these oils have something that's called a smoke point, where there's a particular temperature where their chemical structure starts to change. And it's called a smoke point because that's usually it starts smoking at that, at that time. So if it's just in the oven baking with that, that's probably fine, you know, as long as it's not a lot of smoke coming out of it. It's not burning.
Along with what she's saying, I've noticed though, because I do read the ingredients.
Yes.
And the nutrients. I've noticed that most of the veggie chips, sweet potato chips and all of that, they have the same nutrient makeup pretty much as a regular chip. The carb count be pretty much the same.
Yeah.
The sodium amount is pretty much the same. Calories pretty much the same. Now,
Right.
they may have a different oil that they're done in.
Yep.
So to me, that's not
Not
any
that different.
healthier
Yeah.
than eating
That's a
regular
really good
chip.
point. If anybody didn't hear, she basically is saying that junk food is junk food, and you can tinker and make something a little bit healthier by doing a veggie chip instead of a fried potato chip. But for the most part, the nutrition profile is about the same. It's a high carb, lower nutrient kind of thing. It's got a lot of extra oil, a lot of extra salt.
And it's normally cost a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wonder about that.
Go back to our original question about what is it about the snackiness that you're really seeking, Is it the taste? Is it the crunchy? Is it the salty? Is it the mindless this while you're watching, right? So you like crunch. Let's come up with some crunchy things that are better for you.
Now, I go through my periods where I can deal with the carrots and whatever,
Uh-huh.
crunch. But when I don't know if I'm so much stressed out, I don't know what it is, but sometimes I want potato chips.
You really want potato
I
chips?
want kettle
Yep.
potato chips.
Okay.
My problem is,
Yes.
and I wrote it down, I want to buy a big bag of kettle potato chips.
Yes.
Don't give me no small bag, I'm gonna get pissed off. I want a big bag
I
of
love this
kettle
woman.
potato chips, and I will not necessarily eat the whole bag right then.
Yes.
They will be gone in 48 hours, but I will eat enough till I'm satisfied, then I put it up and I probably finish way too soon. But I am going to attempt to buy a small bag if it can.
Yeah. That was
Buy a small bag.
that was going to be my suggestion, because for the most part, you don't have the habit of having this chip thing every day.
No.
Most of the
not
time,
even
you're
that.
cool with vegetables, which is great,
Mm-hmm.
and some days you want a treat, just like we talked about with the ice cream thing. So your treat is going to be these kettle potato chips because you love them.
Yes.
I love where you're headed with this, because you have realized already, without me reminding you, that you can have a potato chip treat without eating 8-pound bag of potato chips. So
I
there's
got
the
a small bag.
there's the association that you built in your brain that says potato chip treat equals a dump truck full of potato chips. And so that's the thing we'll have to tinker with a
Yeah.
little bit.
Cause I will walk around with the bags, in the regular aisle,
Mhm.
and I go past the little small bag and look at them like, sorry, and I hold on to that big bag, knowing good and well, get the small bag. That's what I'm gonna work
I
on.
love it. I got 2 tools for you around that. Number one, there's this cool, the Japanese culture has an idea, it's called hara hachibu. And it basically means that 80% is done. So when you're eating, you eat not till you're full, but until you're 80% there. And maybe you do that with the potato chips too.
I do, but like I said, I'll buy a big bag and I eat till I'm satisfied of that big bag.
Yep.
But that's still the portion is too much, because that big bag is probably still 2 small bags. You know what I'm saying? Even though I still got some left over in that big bag,
Yep.
and I'll probably eat the rest the next day or the day after, I gotta get in my mind to be satisfied
Yep.
with the smaller bag.
Yep.
And have that be my 80%. Even though I still got some left in the big bag and I'm thinking, oh, I didn't eat the whole bag, but that's still too much. You know what I'm saying?
Try this for me. Time boxing.
What?
It's a technique that I teach people. It's called time boxing.
Time?
Time boxing. You
Okay.
do a little box of time where you either do something for that time or you don't do something for that time. So here's how we're going to handle your potato chip thing. This is awesome. I love it. Thank you for sharing this. When it's potato chip day, if you find that you have already bought the big bag of potato chips instead of the small one, like you said you were gonna, you're gonna put a reasonable portion of these chips in a bowl, and you'll put the rest in the car out in the garage. So you have to go somewhere to get it.
And I do that now.
Great.
Because I got
So
something
here's
like
how.
a little apartment
Yeah.
now.
So here's how we're going to do this. You're going to eat and enjoy your normal portion of potato chips, and your tendency will be, I got to eat more potato chips because that's not enough. Before you make that decision, you're going to have a little time box where you wait, say, 10 minutes or 12 minutes. And after your 10 or 12 minute timer goes off, then you can make a decision. Do I really need more chips or not? Am I going to go out in the garage and get them, or am I done for today? You know, breaking the habit with a few minutes of delay is a really easy way to manage that. So, you're not telling yourself, I can't have chips. You do get to have some chips, and you're going to have a reasonable portion. Before you have more than a reasonable portion, you're going to set a timer and say, all right, 10 minutes or 12 minutes or 15, you know, whatever makes sense for you. From now, I'm going to wait and then decide 15 minutes from now. Because I don't know about you, but I actually have portion issues myself.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that I don't really have much of a sweet tooth and I don't eat a lot of junk food, but I do like to eat a lot of food. So what I eat is good, but I like to eat a lot of it.
Yes.
So I tend to eat too fast if I'm not careful.
Oh my God, you're my twin.
And I was brought up with the whole eat everything that's in front of you until it's gone. You
And
know?
eat quickly, otherwise you won't have
Yeah.
any, and that's my problem.
So I had learned over time that, like, I've had enough long before I'm done eating.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta slow down and pause, and if I wait a little bit, then that allows the brain to catch up and say, yeah, that's good. You don't actually have to keep eating anymore. It takes about 20 minutes for, you actually have, this is cool. I'm gonna geek out again for a second. There's a whole separate, like a nervous system in your digestive system with the stomach and the intestines. It's called the enteric nervous system, and it's a real feedback loop between your brain and your digestion brain. It takes about 20 minutes for this to talk to that and let this know that that's enough. So, like, if you're like I am, it sounds like you might be, we can eat a lot of food in 20 minutes.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
the problem.
So that's something that I have learned over time to, like I said, slow down and then pause. And I'll say, I'm not going to tell myself I'm not allowed to have seconds, or I'm not allowed to finish what's on my plate, because then that gets into that denial and restriction and all that kind of stuff. But what I do say is, I'm going to time box. I'm going to wait 20 minutes. And if I still am hungry 20 minutes from now, then I have some more.
Well,
And I almost never am 20 minutes later.
Well, I think I must have some anxiety or something, because I am not a slow person. I eat fast,
Mhm.
I talk fast, whatever. So, in 20 minutes, I probably not ate 2 plates of a normal person. But when I'm done with food, I'm done with food. I don't want to smell it, I don't want to see it. So once I'm done eating, I'm done eating. But when I'm eating, in that quick, short period of time,
You're
I've
all in,
eaten
yeah.
quite a bit.
A high achiever.
I have eaten too much for my
Yeah.
I'm not a bodybuilder and that's not my thing, but I have eaten too much for me at my age now and my height. It's still too much. So I somehow got to, when I eat slow, I'm nervous. I'm like, it makes me anxious to eat slow. I'm
Sure.
sitting here trying to, and I'm done to try to chew your food on 10 counts and then swallow. I'm like, it just don't seem natural. And I know that's having to change.
Yeah, it takes
your new normal.
some
but,
habit
God.
change, right? And given what you had shared with us about, early in life, there wasn't enough for everybody. So, like, he who eats the fastest gets the mostest, right?
Yeah.
So
It would be enough, but it's like it was only 2 chicken legs. I want my chicken legs, so I have to hurry up, eat mine, then, so I can get the second
Get to
one.
the next thing, right?
Yeah, so I don't know, it's just weird.
Do a little practice with that.
Yeah,
A
I'm
little
gonna
bit
have
of
to.
work like that. And once again, you can time box that. You can say, all right, for the next 60 seconds,
Chew.
I'm gonna eat slow and chew and pay attention to what this tastes like and feels like and smells like and looks like. And after 60 seconds, I go, forget about that and do whatever I want. But that practice and rehearsal starts to build these new skills and new habits. You can't change it all at once.
Yeah.
So little baby steps and little practices, and pretty soon, yeah, you're gonna live. I like that. 60 seconds. You can do that, right? You're a
Yeah.
strong woman. 60
My
seconds.
mom and I, we have this conversation every 6 months, because she eats fast too. And my sister be over there piecemealing. I'm like, I done ate my meal, and I'm like, you want the rest of that? I mean, she eats so slow. I admire people who eat slow. And, cause I'm just like, you wasted time here. Let's go, let's go.
No.
But I don't know. I gotta work on that.
Problem with, I like to eat fast because I get to go in and do the next thing. So,
All right, so let's end up with talking about some of the basics of how to put together healthy meals for weight loss, healthy meals for better nutrition. On your sheet, I put down a little checklist of some of the real basics. Number one there is that a protein and a plant is your basic foundation every time you eat. Does that make sense? Protein source, some kind of plant material, vegetable or fruit. Once you have that together, then you can figure out what else needs to be there or wants to be there or make adjustments around that. But a protein and plant in general is your real fundamental thing. So when you're planning your stuff, whether it's your next meal or your next day or your next week, start with protein and plant every time for every meal and every snack. That's your start. Another big concept that's really simple is do your best to stick to natural foods instead of processed foods. The less chemicals you eat, the less stuff that comes packaged and processed, the better. Nutrients are higher. Chemicals in general, pretty bad for us, right? There's not a very long list of things that food scientists have added to packaged foods that actually improve things for us humans' physiology. It doesn't work that way. Thirdly, portions do matter. It's a lot more complicated than just calories in and calories out, so we can get that nonsense put to bed, please. All calories are not the same, but portions matter, right? Even if you're eating good, healthy food, if you're eating 4 times what you need, you're gonna gain weight, regardless of how healthy it is. So portions do matter, but if you get protein and plant together and natural foods versus processed foods, you get a little more leeway with the portions. Makes sense? You don't have to be as picky when you're eating good quality food. Number 4 there is water, just in case. You need a reminder. Water should be your primary beverage. It's really easy for us to ingest a lot more sugar and chemicals and carbohydrates and calories from beverages. So most of the time when you drink something, it should be water or unsweet tea. Once you start adding things to that, the calories add up quick. I generally suggest when people are trying to lose weight and stay away from cravings and urges around food, to make sure that you eat often enough throughout the day. There's a lot to be said with sort of the flexibility and the science of going longer stretches of time without food, like intermittent fasting is sort of a popular concept, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. We're very flexible creatures as humans from a nutrition standpoint, but most of the folks that I talk with in my coaching practice have trouble with stress eating, trouble with sugar cravings. There's a lot of draw for that kind of stuff. So in that case, the best way to sort of keep those quelled is to make sure that you have a small amount of food every 3 or 4 hours. So you don't get too hungry, blood sugar doesn't drop too much, you're not left, starting to make bad decisions because you get too hungry. So eating often enough is something to pay attention to, especially if you tend to fall victim to stress eating and sugar cravings and late night eating. Number 6 that I wrote on your sheet is a big one, but it's a concept that is helpful. You know, when you're talking about changing your behavior and your mentality around food, you're going to have to dissect what are your triggers, what are your cravings, what are these landmines that you keep banging your head up against the wall around. Come up with some workarounds, come up with some substitutes. Don't try to approach it like, I got to stop doing this completely. You know, cold turkey doesn't last very long for most things. So trying to 100% quit a habit that is troublesome for you is not the best way to really make long-term changes. Baby steps work, substitutions work. Try to do a little better most of the time, or at least some of the time for starters. Stay away from the all or nothing thinking, because you will shoot yourself in the foot. And lastly, I said, plan your treats and your indulgences, just like we talked about with ice cream, right? Don't have your junk food in the house so that you can grab it anytime you want. But if you know, boy, I love birthday cake and I'm going to a birthday party, I'm gonna have some cake when I get there. Plan accordingly for the rest of your day, right? Take those calories into account, take those carbohydrates into account, and work it into your system, because you can make anything pretty much work in a sensible nutrition plan, as long as the frequency is reasonable and the portions are reasonable. So you got to do it on purpose, though. You cannot fall into the habit of, every time I see cake, I got to have it, because there's a lot of cake out there. I need to make that. There's my next t-shirt. Watch out, there's a lot of cake out there. So I have for you, I didn't bring them because I want to save some trees and stuff like that, but I will email you. I have planning sheets for you. I have a little meal combiner for the proteins and fats and carbohydrates. It's all done for you, that you are welcome to have them. I'm just going to give it to you for free. So I'd like to get everybody to just jot down an email for me, and I'll send you all the rest of that stuff. I got some books that I'm going to recommend to you too. I got a lot of good stuff for you. I just didn't want to like write it all on paper. So cool. All right. I am prepared. Excuse me. I'm prepared for questions about, well, anything. I mean, I've talked about what I want to talk about, but now I'm going to talk about what you want me to talk about.
Is there a way to target weight loss?
Tell me what you mean by target weight loss.
Like the muffin top or the...
Oh, I love that. Thank you for asking that question. The question is there a way to eat for targeted weight loss? Something that was really big like lately is belly fat, right? The belly fat diet. Now, the science behind body fat going on and coming off is that we can't decide where food comes off, right? When your body pulls fat off for energy, it's going to pull it off from wherever it wants to, and we don't have any control over where it comes off of. So you can get leaner, you can lose weight, or you can get fatter, but you can't decide where. Does that make sense? The same goes for exercises for specific body parts, right? You can exercise certain muscles, absolutely, but by flexing certain muscles, that does not burn fat away from that specific place. So if you have fat on your stomach, exercising your stomach gets your abs muscle stronger, but it doesn't burn fat preferentially from the stomach area. Does that make sense? That was an excellent question, thank you. That concept is called spot reduction, and you can find that written about a good bit in this type of content. So spot reduction doesn't happen. So you cannot have the belly fat diet, or the, what did you call it? Bat wings? The bat wings diet. There's
the third and fourth boob, the muffin top.
Right, right. So you can certainly eat to lose fat, but by eating a certain way, you don't decide where that fat comes away from. That's up to what your body decides to do. It's up to mom and dad. You should have picked different parents if you don't like it. Great question, though. Thank you. What else?
Is the normal calorie intake that we calories should be deferred?
There is a great, semi-complicated but easy to find formula. It's called the Harris-Benedict equation. And it actually does a pretty good job when compared to the complicated scientific way of determining how many calories your specific organism needs. It's a pretty good formula. And it basically, you know, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but you know, you use your height and your weight and your age and your sex and all of that, and you put it in this formula, and it kicks out an approximation of what your basic calorie baseline is. Harris-Benedict equation. I use that for people. It works fine. It's a good, calories are all approximations anyway. You know, our bodies don't burn calories exactly the same way from minute to minute. Food doesn't have the same energy content exactly. You know, the label says it's 160 calories. Who knows what it actually is? You know, it's all approximation stuff. The way that you technically measure caloric expenditure is you put this mask on that measures the amount of oxygen that you expel while you're sitting there. And after you measure that for 10 or 15 minutes, the computer can extrapolate what your metabolism is sitting there for 24 hours instead of 15 minutes. And so that's how you measure it technically. What else?
Minus one person in here, we seem to be all at an age where we've gotten older.
Me too. This is what are the chances?
And you know, the older I've gotten, of course, the less I've been able to, the harder it is to lose weight.
Yeah.
So, I guess, is there something that we should be doing older with us working out,
Yeah,
to try to counteract that, or, I don't know.
that's an excellent question. Physiology does change after menopause. In middle-aged and older, it really changes, especially for women. I mean, men too, because men lose a lot of the muscle mass that they had. Women in general do not have as much muscle as men, so it's less of a difference. But women, when they stop having their periods, actually there's about a 300 calorie experience there from that process. And so if you don't have that every month, it adds up to 1 to 2 pounds a year, numbers wise. So like after 10 years, you haven't changed anything after menopause, but you're 10 pounds heavier, right? And it's just the lack of having a period. It's one of those. Hormones change. You know, none of us here have the metabolism or the body of a 20-year-old anymore. So that's why the strength training component of the exercise program is so crucial, because it's really that is what changes what's called the cellular uptake of glucose. When you do cardiovascular exercise, like steady state stuff, right? Jogging, treadmill, elliptical, bike, that's fine. You're burning calories when you do that, but that's all you get out of that, other than the heart and lung improvements, right? When you do the strength training stuff, you get this long metabolic boost afterwards from lifting weights, where your metabolism and your calorie burning is elevated for up to 72 hours after your workout, from a hard workout. So both from a calorie afterburn expenditure, and also, as I mentioned, from a glucose uptake in the cells, especially. So if anybody's like pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic, strength training is crucial for re-educating your body how to take up glucose and manage blood sugar better. So if you have a choice of what to do for exercise, whether you're going to go jogging or whether you're going to pick up the dumbbells, strength training wins hands down, both for fat loss and for blood sugar control.
Now,
Plus,
what is
muscles
that
are good.
Compared with calisthenics, is that equivalent to the strength, or?
Calisthenics can be strength trainee depending on how difficult it is for you. And that is more of an individual organism question. Let's take, for example, a 90-year-old woman who most of the time is into bed or on the couch. Her bones start to get very thin. Her muscles start to get very weak. If she stands up on her feet and does this a few times, that is a stress to the skeleton and to her muscular system. So she's going to get some improvements and some benefit from that, right? Someone who is not that frail is not going to get those benefits from that little move, right? So you could extrapolate that to a higher level of thing and say, okay, you got a medium fit, medium healthy person, body weight exercises, calisthenics, push-ups and sit-ups and jumping jacks and all that. My goodness, it's certainly better than not doing anything at all. But are you going to get as good of strength development and metabolic boost and glucose uptake and all that kind of stuff that you do with a slightly more intense weight training workout? Probably not.
My reason for my question is that I can come in here and I can lift whatever I lift.
Yes.
But I can't lift my body weight on a bar hardly. So I'm like,
You should probably fire your trainer immediately.
I'm like, I come in here and I lift pretty good.
Yeah.
But I'm not able to lift my body weight.
It is a pretty high feat of strength to be able to do a chin-up. So the fact that
I mean, I can't even
Push-ups
part of the
are
way.
hard. Push-ups
Part
are
of the
hard.
way. Yeah. I'm like, I should be able to get halfway there or something.
You're just talking pull-ups, right?
Yeah,
Push-ups,
yeah.
fine.
Pull-ups, yeah.
Yeah, so pull-ups, are just like he said, it takes a higher bit of strength.
that's a so
I can only do 6.
Really?
Other than that,
Okay.
so I'm not saying that that's not a great goal,
Yeah.
but it sounds like what you're saying is I can do all this cool stuff with the weights
Yeah.
and I can't do a chin-up. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
That's like me saying, well, I can run around this building no problem. Why can't I run in Nolensville? It's a big difference, you know what I'm saying?
Because I'm like, my body weight, I don't know what I'm doing lifting, but I'm like, I can't even lift my body, so I would think that if I'm lifting this dumbbell, I
Right.
can lift my body.
I see what you're saying. The act of doing a chin-up
Yeah.
requires a lot more upper body strength and a lot more athleticism than you think it does.
Okay.
So there's a big difference between these kind of workouts that you're talking
Yeah.
about and being able to do a chin-up.
Okay.
So I say you still work on it because it is kind of badass.
Yeah. it
Yeah,
is.
I think so.
like it. Yeah.
Okay, so
Now, on here, you mentioned something about the natural foods. Okay, you do your protein and your plant.
right.
Now, what natural food, what would go along with that protein and plant that?
On the last sheet that I gave you is the nutrition, the protein and carb cheat sheet right there. There's an enormous list of proteins. There's a big list of carbohydrates. Basically, anything that is a plant is a good carbohydrate source for starters. All the different vegetables and fruits,
Oh,
grains that aren't processed, good grains like brown rice,
'cause I'm
quinoa,
thinking
real
the
oats.
fruit, the vegetables going along with the plant.
That is correct.
So, the grain, rice, brown rice and stuff like that, okay,
Start with, right,
okay.
start with the protein in the plant as your foundation. And then you can decide after that, do I really need to add something to this?
Okay.
Do I need this dinner roll with my protein and plant? Do I need another extra scoop of rice in addition to my broccoli and fish? That kind of stuff. That's where you start tinkering with your calories and your nutrient content.
Yeah.
But you should always start with the protein and the plant because that's where the foundation of your nutrition comes from. Once you have and fiber and all that kind of stuff, right? So once you have that together, that's the nuts and bolts of it, and then you can tinker around the edges with that.
One thing.
Add potato chips when you need to, exactly. Sir?
One of the things I've been trying to do, and I know you talk about, not restricting yourself from stuff, is that when I go shopping, if something has over 4 ingredients, I try
Yeah.
to buy it instead of something that has 50 in it because I've learned that there's like 60-something different names for sugar and stuff like that on the
Yeah,
processed.
exactly, and that goes right to the natural foods versus processed foods concept.
Right.
There are no food labels on a red pepper.
It's a red pepper.
Right? We do not need to have a head of lettuce that has the nutrition information on it. So, yeah, real food is real food. And then just be careful with adding the extra processed
Yeah,
stuff.
it's a lot of
You
times
get- You
like
get in trouble quick.
Like if you want some peanut butter, you look at the peanut butter and you want it to say peanuts.
It should say peanuts and
It
maybe
should
salt.
say-
Yeah,
It should
that
say
is all.
15 other
There, yes.
ingredients.
Exactly. Well said.
If you're like for me, I can't do a lot of fruits.
Okay.
I'm allergic to,
Okay,
so I'm kind of limited on my fruit.
Okay.
So I may eat a protein and a vegetable.
yep,
And I may not have fruit.
Right.
Because my body is, you know, I don't always eat fruit.
Okay.
Because my body.
Sure.
I'm just funny with that, but
That's
it's,
fine.
you know.
You have so many plants to pick from. Surely you can find 10 of them that work for you. You could probably come up with
Well, I know
80 of them.
a lot of times, you know, you want a fruit as a snack.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes my body just is not gonna do a fruit as a snack.
Okay.
You know, and
Don't do a fruit snack then. That's easy.
I might be better off eating
Carrot stick, celery stick.
or a piece of meat.
Sure.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I normally buy
A handful of nuts,
lean
something
jelly,
like that.
ham, or, you know, whatever, a piece of chicken or something. And that might be my snack because my body's just not going to, I can tell if I eat this fruit, it's gonna mess me up.
It's fine. Nothing you have to eat.
I try to do like some almonds, like a handful of almonds.
Yeah, a handful of nuts is great.
Cause there are good fats.
Mhm. What else? You've been very quiet back there.
She's always quiet.
All right, cool. Well, thank you guys for taking the time to